Hello and welcome to This is Ibrox live match reaction on YouTube after a disappointing result at the Tony Macaroni Stadium. As Rangers fail to score and draw with Livingston 0-0, I'm Martin Douglas and tonight I'm joined by Willie Boyd and William Irwin. Gentlemen, how are we?
I'm fine, Martin. Look at yourself.
Raging, to be honest with you, raging. Willie Irwin, I'll come to you first. We were talking about the performance. We've been talking about the performance for the last kind of four games, but we've been saying, well, look, we're getting the results, the performance will come, but that was pretty atrocious today.
Yeah, look, we just never looked like scoring, really. It was just one of those afternoons that, you probably try and move on to the next game as quickly as possible if you're the manager. Because if you watch that video back again, there's really not a lot you can pick from it. Livingston really never done a hell of a lot going forward. They set out their stall pretty early on how they were going to play. We never really looked like hurting them that often in the game. Probably one of the more disappointing afternoons for our attacking players. We probably never done enough in the final third to really look like scoring goals. Bournemouth's free kick probably was our best of the whole game in terms of quality, and that's pretty damning, really, considering that was whatever it was, like the 84th, 85th minute of the match, that was our best chance. It's possibly time for the manager now. I know it's not knee-jerk because also we've talked about the last couple of games in terms of what we're trying to do, but that might mean the manager now looks at next week's game against Kelly and thinks that, if somebody like Roof has a good week in training and he's getting fitter and he's closer to starting, then maybe he's the guy who comes back in. Obviously, if Joe is fit enough for next week, then he obviously comes back into the team. We just didn't do enough today to win the game, but we just need to kind of go on with it and go on to the next game and try and pick up the next 3 points.
It's disappointing, Willie Boyd, because we've still got the opportunity to put some pressure on Celtic, but we had a real opportunity to go 11 points clear. And listen, I know it's still early in the season, but we've seen this last season as well. Every time we started to build a wee bit of pressure, we maybe got a couple of points ahead, we blew it. And it feels to me anyway, and listen, I know it's straight after the game, emotions are a wee bit high, but it just feels the same. It's always the same with Rangers. As soon as we start to get that wee bit of pressure, we mess it up.
Absolutely. I don't really know what else to add with it going on a rant, but
go on a rant, mate. That's what we're here
for. No. I just think it's so poor, and I feel like the management need to start taking a lot of this blame. Last week, he kind of came out and put a lot of pressure on the team to perform that bit better, and then this week or this game, because it's not been a week yet, but we've lost points, we've dropped points. Have the team seen what he said after the game on Wednesday night and thought, how are we meant to, better getting 3 goals and getting the points on the board? So that's what matters right now. It doesn't really matter about performance. As long as we're winning, who cares? Do you know what I mean? It's nice to play pretty football and whatnot, but you need to try and get the goals. And today we could have played all night and we wouldn't have got a goal.
Oh, we could have played to next month and we wouldn't have got a goal, but when there was not a chance in the first half, there was a shot behind Kent and the Livingston defender Guthrie kind of blocked it and it came back up and it hit his outstretched arm. Now I know they've changed the rules slightly, if your arm's in an unnatural position, but I don't know if you make that challenge, then your arm's going to be out, biomechanics and all that. But for you, was that a penalty or are we just clutching at straws?
Look, I mean, I'm kind of old school. I mean, to me, that's not a penalty. Because to me, it's got to be blatant. Like, you watch some of the things these days that are giving penalties for. I mean, at the end of the day, if we had VAR in this country, then I'm sure they would have probably looked at it and it possibly might have ended up being a penalty. But in my personal opinion, if we start giving penalties for that, it would be pretty worrying, to be honest, because I don't think there's any intent from the guy. It's just to bounce the ball onto his arm. And I think, as you're saying, the fact we're kind of clutching at straws to try and pick up, the 3 points for that kind of result of the match isn't really good enough from our point of view. It'll be interesting. I mean, I've not heard the manager's reaction to the game, but I think after games like this, there's no point in coming out and tearing strips off the players, because I'm not really too sure that achieves anything after that kind of game. I think sometimes the best thing is just to say that we're moving on to the next game, get the players back into the training ground. You try and pick the bits out of the game that you can, and then you try and move forward to the next game. Because it is frustrating. It's frustrating for all of us because we knew how Livingston were going to play. And I think, as I said to you prior to this starting, you could watch Livingston against Hibs and watch how Livy played against them compared to how they play against us, and it's like night and day. So it's difficult. You can set your stall up to play a certain way and try and do things in games, but it's always about that first goal, and we just need to find a way of getting that first goal in these type of games where we're getting frustrated, where they're low blocking us, where they're doing everything to stop us playing, slowing the game down. It is, but we just need to try and move on to the Kelly game now. I mean, I think that's basically it.
And the thing is, I was going to say, right, we'll go through my notes for the first half, nothing. We'll go through my notes for the second half, nothing. It really was, Willie Boyd, if we want to go and progress and challenge Celtic and go on and win this league, which I think this team is very capable of doing, we really have to come up with something better than get the ball to Taven Barisic, cross it in, then spend 5 minutes trying to get through the middle. The build-up play was slow. We looked as if we had no idea how to score a goal today.
No, absolutely, and I think that's what I was kind of touching on earlier when I was speaking. I think the management and the coaches need to take a bit of the blame. I don't think we've seen enough change in formation. There's been wee slight tweaks, but it's pretty similar. For the first time he came in up until now, nothing's really changed, and I think it's about time we maybe try and. I mean, he did try 3 at the back once before, and it failed miserably, to be honest, against Motherwell. But if Balogun's back fit on Saturday, is it we're playing Kelly next game? Balogun, if he's back fit, I'd like to see 3 at the back, and maybe losing this 2 number 10s, because for me it's not working. It's clutter in the middle of the park. It's causing us probably issues as well, because other teams, when they're parting the bus, they're all just running into each other there, and it's so easy to take the ball off them. When there's about 6 Livingston defenders, you've got Kent, Hadji trying to break their way through, and then Barker coming on as well. I was so frustrated seeing that substitution coming on, to be honest with you. But I understood it to an extent, but try to use his pace and whatnot. But he's not a Rangers player for me, to be honest.
Well, the boss, Adam Robertson, has put in the YouTube comments, how much did we miss Joe Aribo today? And well, Erwin, that's something that me and you were kind of touching on before we went live. Just missing that wee bit of trickery up front to maybe try and break down defences. But yeah, we did miss Joe Aribo, but we still should have had enough to at least score a goal against Livingston.
Yeah, look, it's not an excuse that Joe wasn't playing, and it's that means we can't win a game of football. I think the difference with having Joe on the pitch is it's his ability to take the ball and then drive with it. He find pockets of space, and also in pre-season he was getting himself into the box. So a lot of the times when Morelos is taking his touch and he's moving it on, it's going back to Aribo, then he's driving into the box. We've never really seen that today. And I think one of the worrying things for the manager at the moment, slightly, it's probably not desperate times, but he might think that it's time for Hadji to sit out a game. And I'm not just handpicking him. I just think of the front 3, he potentially is the one that's maybe not done enough so far in the opening games, and he might be the one to drop out. Whether that means that Roof comes in and starts ahead of him, whether that means that Aribo moves higher up and plays in that position, I don't know. But I think today also shows that, the chatter during the summer that maybe we need that extra wide player, the right winger or a left winger, somebody that can also do something a bit different from what we've already got, must be kind of high in the manager's thoughts. Again, it's difficult when you're trying to sign players as the season's going on, and that's what we're finding with Roof and Itten, is that we're trying to basically fit these 2 guys into how we play, as well as trying to get Roof fit. That is basically what we're trying to do. So if we sign another winger in, say, a month's time, how long does it take for him to get used to how we want to play? Normally in the summer you would have weeks to work with the guys and get them into a system of how we play. At the moment we're having to actually train these guys and get them fit while trying to win games of football. And I did feel sorry for Roof when he came on, because he's trying, you can see that he's trying, but he's just lacking that sharpness that will come, but it could be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we don't know. And Etton's just obviously trying to get used to how we play compared to how he played in his home country, and that's the difficulty. We are trying to change him into maybe a slightly different type of striker than what he's been used to before.
Well, the frustrating thing for me was that when Etton came on, there wasn't that many more crosses getting put into the box. When Etton came on, we changed our play, and Etton's a big lumpy boy, and if you look at the goals he's scored I can't remember the team we signed him for, but if you look at the goals he scored there, a lot of them were headers and stuff. But listen, we're going to come on to Hadji in 2 seconds. But for anybody watching live now, obviously there's not a great deal to talk about for the game. So see if you get your questions and comments into the comment section on YouTube. We will read them out. Wally Boyd, Hadji's going to take a lot of criticism, right? And probably quite rightly so. He was poor and he hasn't been great since the league started. But you have to kind of caveat that by saying the rest of the team didn't play great today either, but Hadji was disappointing.
No, absolutely. But I think the thing you get with Hadji is maybe every 2 or 3 times a game, maybe he's going to put that pass in that could get us in and goal. And I think that's the kind of dilemma Gerrard has, because he is a bit of a luxury player. Maybe doesn't do too much or doesn't get involved as much as maybe the supporters would like. But he does bring the kind of the great bit of quality, maybe threading a pass through. Then you've got Morella sit on Roof, getting through into goal and possibly put us 1-0 up, like what happened against St Johnstone. Took us into the break 2-0 up, far more comfortable. Because I didn't think there were too much between the first half against St Johnstone and the first half today, apart from the 2 goals that we got against St Johnstone.
Well, Willie Irwin, Nat RFC's wrote in the comments, it's Gerrard's fault, team selection is pish. Right? Now, Gerrard is going to take a lot of criticism and stuff like that. What different substitutions or formations could Gerrard have tried today to try and break Livingston down? Because it did seem, although the front 4 do move about and interchange, but we didn't seem to really do a lot different today and try and break them down.
No, I think as like sort of Wally Boyd was saying earlier on, we've got a system of how we play, and teams know how we're going to play most of the time in terms of how we're set up, how we're going to move the ball from side to side, try and move the ball through Hadji or Kent. The problem today is obviously when Aribo's missing and we bring in Arfield, he's not the same type of player as what Aribo is. And that's the problem that you have in games like this, where like Scott's not going to do the exact same things that Joe does. And if you take Hadji out and you bring in Roof, you then maybe lose that like sort of imagination that Hadji's got. Roof's maybe more of somebody who's going to drive at players, use his quick feet, try and get to the byline, create a bit like what Kent can do. But it's looking at the opposition and thinking, what's the best thing I can do? I felt today the team that we picked, obviously without knowing that Joe was injured clearly, would have been the team that I would have probably picked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, it certainly doesn't look as though Roof was ready to start the game. So the only other options he would have had today would have been to play somebody like Jones or Barker. And I agree with Wally Boyd. I don't know what Barker offers us in terms of he wants to play in space. He wants to get beyond guys and chase the ball. But Stephen defences are so deep against us, there's not a hell of a lot of space to run into. And that's my worry with Barker. It's a bit like the sort of Michael O'Halloran going over again. There's not a lot of space for these type of players to run into. And it seems like Jones is quite far out of the picture. He doesn't really seem to be that one that's going to get picked for the bench and he's going to come on that often. So today, when you look at the starting 11 out with Aribo, it basically picked itself. I think I said it in the pod during the week in the aftermatch. For me, the only time I feel was going to play is when Aribo's missing. Because I don't think he's the sort of player that's going to do the same job as what Jack and Kamara does, because that's where Davis comes into the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know how it's going to work when we're missing a Joe Aribo, unless we can get this other player in that we're talking about. I don't see who else will come in and make that difference, unless you drop Hadji further back, which to me that doesn't work, because you need somebody that's going to have the work ethic to get back and to do the work of a box-to-box player. And sort of Giannis isn't that type of player.
Well, see, this is the problem, Willie Boyd, right? And I probably shouldn't read this name out, right? But Happy69 says that we should try a 4-5-1 to help Hadji. Now that, I'm no tactical genius, I'm terrible at Football Manager, but has the players that Gerrard's brought in maybe not suiting the system that he wants to play? And should we look to change the system, and will Gerrard change the system?
It's a tough call, to be honest, isn't it? A 4-5-1, I don't think it's for me. I think I'd rather have the 2 strikers, if I'm honest, going up against the teams like Livingston, because then you're giving the defence problems, who to mark, who's dropping off. the other guy could maybe find that space and then the ball's coming in the box, Maybe it's time we see Morelos, if he's still here next week, and start up front against Kilmarnock and see what that does, see what that brings us. Because I know it's still early days, but today I was quite impressed with Iton's kind of link-up play. I know a lot of folk haven't really seen that, said anything about him, but, he had a few kind of nice flicks. The defence, dealt with it in a hole. But, for me, I think that there could be a chance to maybe get Morelos up there alongside him. But I also feel, I just want to touch on this as well, see if we do sell Morelos, I still think we're really light up front and we'd probably need to get another striker in, because for me it looks like Roof's going to maybe play that right wing role, but then again it maybe depends on if we're going to go out and get that right winger to kind of, bolster that side of things, because we do need to kind of put a wee bit of pressure on Hadji. I feel like in the centre, today we could have done with somebody else coming off the bench, taking Kamara or Jack's position and changing it up a bit, but we've not got him there to do that, and it's a position we really need to sort out as soon as possible.
Well, the issue, when we go into that free to back, is predominantly then you're talking about a 3-5-2, and our best players, if you like, our most expensive players, and Kent and Hadji, would they fit that system?
I think realistically no, because it would need to play as wing backs, which means that you can't start Tav Barisic if that's the case, because you've got to try and find space for these guys to play in. I basically think we're either going to play 4-3-3 or we're going to play 4-2-3-1. But it's how we use it with the players we've got. So when the two are floating behind the striker, when it's Kent and Hadji that's floating behind Morelos, it's important that like Aribo gets higher up the pitch and then becomes the third player at times, that the two full backs get higher up the pitch to create the space. When you're playing 4-2-3-1, it means that either Hadji or Kent have got to go wide if you bring in another wide player. Okay, so if it's Kent on the left, somebody on the right, and then Hadji through the middle, or if you bring in another number 10 and you put Hadji right and Kent left, and then somebody new in the 10. So it's trying to find that balance. To me, I don't think you get the best out of Giannis playing in the wide positions. I don't feel like we get his quality in the final third in those positions, and he's better as a 10 right in the middle of the pitch. And it's important we try and get him the ball as much as possible, pretty much to try and play the passes in between the full backs and the centre backs, or having shots for distance. Yet again, this is another thing. I would love to know the stats of how many shots we've had for outside the 18-yard box in the first, whatever that is, like 4 or 5 games. But you see, when you hit a shot for that distance, anything can happen. It could hit a defender and float into the back of the net. All right, I mean, maybe like 60 times out of 100 it will go flying over the bar. But it just feels like at times we try to play that perfect ball through, or we try to find that extra pocket of space to play the ball inside. And I think we do miss guys who could score goals in midfield. So guys like an Alberts, guys like Van Bronckhorst, who were able to get goals for distance. Even just came back a few years ago, I'm not saying we should sign this player by the way before people start coming a rant, but the last real midfield player that we had that scored that amount of goals was Windass.
Aye.
Somebody that can get those goals, and that's what we were talking about in the previous couple of kind of pods and stuff like that, is that we need that guy who's going to get those goals. I'm still hopeful that Aribo and Kent will get us a good amount of goals, but it still feels like we need maybe one more who's basically going to come in and get us 10, maybe 15 goals over the league and cup in Europe, because that's what we're going to need, especially when Europe kicks in. There's going to be a lot of games and we're going to have to rotate, because we're not going to keep being able to play Aribo, Kent, Hadji. It's just not going to happen. There's going to be times where guys are going to have to drop out, and that's where we need to find ways of winning games. So,
on that as well, sorry Martin, on that as well, see like Hadji, see when you're thinking everything he's done, just think about where he's played and where he's played the passes from. It's always usually in that, like in the centre of the, the park. He's both footed, so he's comfortable to, ping it out with either foot and get like Kent in with Braga. Livingston last season, he played the wee through ball to, was it Arfield? And they done it this year, and I can't done it this season. Aye, put in Barisic against St Johnstone, and then Barisic cut back to Kent. It's all came for the centre, so I do think we need to use him more in the number 10 role.
Yeah, look, I don't think anybody can argue with that, because I think see anybody that's watched Giannis, whether it's been with us, whether it's been with Romania, or maybe his short spell in Belgium. I mean, there's clearly a talent there, and everybody can see it. but it's trying to get the best out of him in our team and trying to find these pockets of space where he can, find that killer ball, or he can play the ball to somebody who's then going to inject something into the game. And at the moment, we're just not seeing it enough. But it does feel as though he's going to be the whipping boy this season now.
Yeah.
And that when we don't win games, he's going to get a lot of criticism because he's come in with this fanfare that we paid whatever it was, £3.5 million, £4 million for him. The excitement surrounding him, obviously, who his dad was, the ability he's got, the performances against Braga were great, obviously. But we still have to realise he is still only a kid. And that he's went for Romania and had a short spell in Belgium. Then they basically sent him out on loan to us. We've signed him. So in the space of a couple of years, he's went for Romanian football, a short spell in Belgium, a short spell in Scotland, and then he signs.
Well, see, no, the thing you've got to remember is as well, because of what happened last season and the league getting cancelled so early, he hasn't actually played that many games in the top league. But listen, if we could just move it quickly on to Morelos. Now, you're talking about Hadji being the whipping boy. Morelos is most certainly also the whipping boy, especially with all the rumours about his transfer and stuff. But see, for anybody who thinks that he's no passion, no desire, watch the kickoff because he almost forgets to go down on one knee, because when the referee blows the whistle for him to take the knee, he's running away, he's ready to start. Wally boy, again, we're still using Morelos in this kind of come deep and pick up the ball, pass it wide, and then also try and get in the box and score goals. He get booked today again for dissent. The referee, honestly, the card was out before he started shouting. But what did you make of Morelos today? What did you make his performance?
Well, I don't think he had a lot of service, to be totally honest with you. He kind of had a few, Goldson had tried to get it to go and he tried to get it, but he was more in the way. It came off the back of his heels. I don't think it was his greatest ever game, but then again, the service up to him wasn't even there either.
Non-existent.
Totally no there. And if he's going to blame him, probably for not getting us the goal like he usually does, but if he's not getting the ball to his feet in the right areas, he's not going to create the chances. And just touching on the referee booting, Morelos, a Livingston player done the exact same thing, and nothing got done, nothing got said. He couldn't wait to book Morelos because of who it was. Oh, I'm going to get in the telly here. That's what it felt like.
And there was a question put in the chat there, Wally Irwin. I don't know if this is unfair or fair, because last season we spoke about Brandon Barker and we said Brandon Barker's done at Ibrox. Then he came in, had a couple of good games. I think it was in pre-season. Came on today, didn't really do much. But again, the team didn't really do much today. But for you, Brandon Barker, yes, no? Is he gone?
Look, I think it's tough. I mean, the manager obviously would probably like to move players on. I think he's made that abundantly clear. But the fact that this transfer window runs until October, it's hard to let guys go when you basically don't know if you're going to get somebody else back in. I'm sure the manager's probably saying, look, it's fine if we get rid of this, and this, but I really want this guy. And until these deals can be done, it doesn't look as though we're going to let other players go. So at the moment, it looks like, obviously, Docherty looks like he's close to going. It looks like Ross is obviously in discussions to leave him. But you get guys like Jordan Jones, Brandon Barker, Greg Stewart,
Jamie Murphy as well.
Jamie Murphy's another guy who's barely seen the light of day. Then also you look at the guys who could potentially go out on loan. It's difficult, but the manager's almost got to keep all of these guys happy as long as he can, even though probably behind closed doors these guys probably know that they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, with Brandon, I've never seen enough to suggest that he's going to be a big threat for us. When you look at what he did for Hibs, it's different when you're playing for Hibs because every opposition sitting 8-9 men behind the ball, so there's space for him to run into. Whereas when you're playing for Rangers, there's not always that space for you to be direct, to get in behind players. And that's why sometimes in pre-season guys look great, because the pace is there and the space is on the pitch for that pace to be used. Whereas here you just don't see it. I mean, even at Ibrox, when you're 2 or 3 nothing up, it's not like teams all of a sudden come out and start having a go. They'll basically just accept that they're beat 2 or 3 nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem that we've got. So it's probably finding a winger who can take players on, who's got the technical ability. I know that they've obviously been linked with this Danish guy again, and he looks like a sort of like a goal-scoring wide player, something that we probably are looking to add. But how much would we get for Barker? How much would we get for Jordan Jones? And this is the problem you've got. So if we don't sell these guys, I don't know if the manager will be able to bring in more, because the squad's still pretty top heavy. I think we've got like late 20s, maybe early 30s in terms of first team squad numbers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hell of a lot of players there. But, who's going to take Jamie Murphy? So who's going to pay a fee and take all his wages?
Now, see, I thought Jamie Murphy, this would have been a good game for Jamie Murphy to come in. But listen, guys, we're just about to finish up. But just before we do, listen, there was only, from memory, correct me if I'm wrong, there was only 2 chances I can remember. One was the Barisic free kick, which was a fantastic save by the goalkeeper. And also Happy 69's wrote, and the only chance that Buffalo had was the header at the back post, which he should have done a bit better with Willie Boyd. But apart from that, that was the only 2 chances I can remember in that full game.
There was no creativity, really. We've been crying out for it, even when we've been winning, to be fair. We need that coming for the midfield. It's all very good and well coming for, the white men, but see if I'm Livingston, that's all I'm practising on, is how to deal with these crosses coming in the box. Mm-hmm. And it must be so easy if you're practising it all week and then that's happening. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like second nature reading exactly where the balls are going, especially when you've got one up front, like today. I mean, we had the opportunity probably to throw in Itan, Way, Morelos. Maybe Gerald didn't want to take the risk with him being on the yellow card. But I think it was a perfect opportunity to take off one of the defensive midfielders today. And see, just touching on the players that we were talking, Willie Irwin was talking about maybe getting rid of. I don't think we'll get rid of any of them for another month or so, because you're probably looking at getting rid of them in the English market, and they're still a bit behind. I can't remember the exact times they're coming back, September or early October maybe. But that's the market you're looking to get rid of these guys, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So, we're going to be holding on to them, and then that might, hamper us when we're trying to go out and get, somebody. We might have a couple of extra players in, because we've got a long time to October.
Yep,
and again, a comment's just come in as well. Kamara and Jack not getting the ball forward fast enough and driving the team forward and not sideways. That's a good point as well, because I felt as well, from the defence to Kamara and Jack, that's really slow build-up play as well, Willie Irwin. And I've praised Jack no ends. He's one of my favourite players at Rangers. But I do, and by the way, just on the live reaction of the St Johnstone game, and I said I didn't think Kamara played well. I watched it back, and Kamara was excellent, so I got that wrong. But today, Kamara and Jack were kind of non-existent.
I think in these kind of games, the manager could potentially change one of them up. But then the guy who would have probably changed them up today would have been Stephen Davis, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And since Stephen's played so little football, I don't know how much of a difference that was made. There's talk about a bounce game this week in between the 2 games. So possibility that maybe we'll see these guys get 60, 70, 80, 90 minutes. It's important now that we get guys back up to speed. We know we need Stephen Davis maybe getting 60, 70 minutes. And I agree with Willie Boyd. If it's going to be another 2, 3, 4 weeks before some of these guys move on, we've still got to keep them fit. I mean, we're now no far away from the qualification games in Europe. We've still got a lot of league games to play between now and the turn of the year. It's difficult. The manager's got to get pretty much everything spot on in terms of transfers in and out in the next, whatever that is, kind of 7, 8 weeks. Basically, these next 7 or 8 weeks will probably dictate if we're going to be champions or not. Because I don't think we'll do a huge amount of business in January. You see, with the window sort of closing in October,
mm-hmm.
I don't think January is going to be a great month for signing players. So basically, whoever we get in between now and this window closing and who we get out the door is who we're going to have for the rest of this season. And it's got to be almost perfect that we get everything spot on. If we don't, and we're left with guys kind of sitting about and they're not playing and they're not really that interested, that's a problem.
Well, James Lindsay's just put in the comments, need a Mendes in midfield to create something. Game was piss poor. I would kill somebody right now for a Pedro Mendes. But Willie Boyd, a final question for you, and the hardest question for you. Who was your man of the match?
I'm not even getting him to a name. No, not a chance. That was overall, it was so poor, wasn't it? It was,
it was.
For Kamara and Jack sitting on Hillanders and Goldson toes to take the ball 2 yards to pass, back to them, and then them sideways all game. It was, nobody at all. not one standout.
No, it was really poor. And listen, for everybody watching live, we really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, and you can catch up with all our usual midweek podcasts and all our interviews. We've got a One Night in Ibrox series, and we've got a History of Rangers series as well. But Willie Boyd, Willie Irwin, although it was a really disappointing game, thanks very much for joining me.
No bother, mate. Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Thanks to everybody watching, and we shall speak to you soon. If the producer would end the broadcast, that would be good.